Okay, first job off the rank is to get this bulkhead done. Now this one is in the starboard side, and it's essentially the divider between the main stateroom at the front and this companionway. So it needs to be done. It's basically a scarfed joint, and I'm going to scarf the plywood. But we've got two panels. It's basically two 1200 wide, 2.2 metre long plywood, marine ply panels, and this bulkhead has to be sheathed in a 600 double bias. So there's quite a bit of work to do here. And basically these are the patterns here. You can see the dividing line right down the middle here. Now that is going to define where the scarf goes. So I've got to then transfer it over to the plywood once it's all scarfed, and I'm going to do it all here up on the bridge deck. Got 4 sheets of plywood there. I've got to do a heap of scarfing tomorrow. I want to try and get all the bulkheads in place so that I can get them all together and then get them all laminated with the layers of glass. So the setup for the scarfing takes about probably an hour or two to get set up. So I've got one 12mm piece of marine ply here, and it's sitting on 3mm of MDF. That way I won't damage the table underneath. Really important to get it square, dead square, so that we get a perfect scarf. So that's pretty much spot on right there. And then I've got the modified scarfing jig here that I made so that can actually sit on the wood, so I can do extended lengths at full length, 2.4 metre long length, rather than just a 1200mm, which I do sideways. So I'm able to mount this on here like so, and then on this end I can simply clamp it with a couple of G clamps, with big brace clamps, like so. And on the other end I have to actually clamp it down, screw it down to the table, because I've got no way of clamping it in the middle of the sheet. So this part's pretty relatively simple. I can just use these smaller clamps. I do have to be mindful of the fact that everything needs to be dead square, and it's been about 8 months since Ed and I scarfed the original bulkheads, the main bulkheads. These are actually on the starboard side. They're the ones around the bathrooms, and they're actually an elbows bulkhead. So they're a little bit different in that they're not one continuous piece all the way across. They have to be sectioned, two scarves and then a mitered join with lots of tape to beef them up. So this side's okay, but on the other side, it's on the other side of the sash clamp that I use for the guide for the router. I need to actually screw that down. So we're further along here. There's a roundabout here somewhere, and that's actually determined by the length of the sash clamps. So going way back to around about November last year when I made this jig, this part actually fits in here, and this one fits in here in the corresponding slot. So that determines my length and pretty much determines how I keep it square. And there, and similarly that one there. So that's the jig per se. The only issue is that this isn't held in place, so I had to come up with a way of keeping this in place. I can put one clamp here on the end, but I need another way to secure the back here to stop it from moving. So I came up with a simple pipe clamp like so, pipe bracket, and what I do is I mount there and screw it down into the plywood and put 2 small screw holes in there, and that actually holds the whole thing square while I'm doing my scarfing. So yeah, it worked really well last time, and now I'm pretty much set up to do this sheet. The only problem with this is because I'm doing the full length, I have to then move it all the way along and set it all up again. It's like a 10-minute job to actually physically set this part up. So that's dead square, and then we need to make sure that this clamps down. So you need a little bit of spring pressure to get this down. So I've got this one here. What that also does, it flattens this sheet out. Because it's so long, it's actually a little bit longer than my table, there's a chance of it bowing. So by screwing it down, it's sort of serving 2 purposes here. way that can't move, and then I'm free to enable the router to do its magic. And yeah, it's a pretty noisy, uncomfortable affair doing this scarfing, but just works a treat. Actually works perfectly. Now, the other thing I'm going to do too is these bars here, because they haven't been used for a long time, I'm going to wax them up so that this thing slides really well. You don't want it sort of catching, because you know the router's going to be doing a hard enough job as it is. And the other thing too when you're scarfing too is that you let the router do the work. Don't force it. And there's nothing worse than chunking into a piece of beautiful timber with a router and you know taking a big chunk out of a you know bloody expensive piece of plywood. I'm going to get all of the bulkhead scarf for the forward section of the boat. Very important. First, I've got to move a whole heap of trailers and get my routing jig up around the back of the factory here, so the sawdust will end up in the garden and not in everybody's offices down here in the factory. It's always a battle trying to get started at work. You know, it's the amount of big items I have to move around can be a real battle, and that's the one thing. If you're going to build a boat, make sure you've got plenty of space and plenty of storage. Now, because the sheet's 2.44 long and my sash clamps are only 1.1 long in between the jig spaces, I've got to work out a way to extend the router bit right to the end of the scarf, and I've done that by putting in this last little section here. If I put it on each end, I've got to actually move it twice, but if I get it square, then it gives me something to butt up against, and then I'm able to move the whole jig along to it, right to the very end of the table and not to the end of the plywood. And that's enabled me to be able to get the scarf all the way along the piece. It's a bit of, as we say in Australia, rooting around, but it does make a difference to be able to scarf it all. It means I don't have to come back and retrospectively plane it or sand it, that last little sort of 2 or 3 centimetres I can't quite get to with the router. So lots of thinking, and you better have to spend the time doing it. I only really have to scarf 2 pieces of plywood here today, and another couple at the back, and then I'm done scarfing and it's all over. So before I went away, I cleared the decks so that I'd have a good flat position here to scarf these bulkheads. Last year, or this year, earlier this year, when Deb and Ed were here, we laid them down on the concrete outside so it was flat. This bridge deck's about as flat as it can get. I'm able to work up here in the tent now, and that way I'm save a lot of moving, so I'm going to do all that part up here. I've got to basically go and buy some epoxy or order some epoxy, because all of these bulkheads are going to be sheathed in a 600 double bias cloth as well, totally seal all of the wooden bulkheads, and then I can basically put them in place. So they're going to be pretty heavy. I'm going to do them all here on the bridge deck. I'm going to cover up all my modules with some covers, some tents, and I should be able to get it all done up here in the job now. So it's going to be a long process, probably take me a good week or two to get all these bulkheads done, but once they're done, they're ready to stand in place, and then I can basically go forward. I keep saying that, going forward every day, but they're massive jobs, and they all need to be done in a pretty consecutive line to get everything in place. Oh, that was a bit of an effort. I decided to put that down there. Wish I hadn't, I've also just pissed it off. Alright guys, so I've marked this, I've removed the screws because I'm going to put it in place and just see if it actually lines up perfectly, which it should, and hopefully I'll be able to just do it in situ. If not, I'm going to have to glue it together up here on the bridge deck. Now, the one thing when you scarf that you do need to be a bit careful that you don't destroy the joint. So you've got to sort of make sure you don't destroy that feather. And that's not really... Well, that's pretty perfect. Now look who I found. It's Billy. Billy hanging out in the build. Hello dude. Haven't seen you for a few months. I forgot you were down there. Funny stuff. That's a good fit over there. Pretty happy with that. That's fabulous. You can see how everything fits within, you know, 5mm, which is just fantastic, because basically that flange there will be glassed to that bulkhead, and you know, all these flanges get glassed to the bulkheads, and then it just adds to the ultimate strength of the boat, where we're basically adding. Now, the one thing I won't do is I won't be throwing away these templates or disposing of them anytime soon. In fact, I won't be throwing them away at all. But the beauty of it is, when I come to dress this panel with a veneer or a sheet of gel coated fiberglass or something, I already have the template for the panel. So that's not only have I got a bulkhead template, but I've also got the complete template for all of the linings. So this bulkhead here, this will have a nice probably a timber paneling here. Now I can just use the bulkhead template for the paneling. So very, very simple, and a lot of very good way to minimize waste. And that'll be glassed to the bulkhead, and then the panel will fit over the top, giving me a neat flush finish to simply just cork along here. So I've got a plan for the future. Not really sure what color we're going to go with yet. Janet quite likes the beachy sort of look. I'd like it to be a little bit light, a bit more beachy. But yeah, there's lots going on here, and I've got a lot of things to now think about. So moving along with the same theme, the forward starboard head actually has a bulkhead adjoining the front of it, and then it dog legs back at 45 degrees and joins the main forward bulkhead. It also needed to be 12mm ply with 600 double bias on each side, so I set about cutting the shape for that and then getting the plywood, and ultimately I got it in place, and then this second part, that second dog leg, was a bit of a challenge because it had to have some 45 degree angles cut on it as well, and that will actually butt join onto the bulkhead that I'm fitting against the head there, and then ultimately it's going to be taped and glassed and tabbed to the hull structure. And it got a little bit complex in there for a while, but we certainly got it done, and it looks pretty good now. I'm pretty happy with it. That's actually going to be sheathed in 600 gram double bias on both sides before it gets tabbed in place. There's another peculiar piece that I had to cut, which is actually on an angle, and it actually follows listen to the rain, man, it's pissing down. But it follows the angle of that head there, and it's this piece here. And if you look at the shape of it, it's actually quite an unusual shape. And it doesn't actually have to be scarfed, or it can't be scarfed. What I'm aiming to do is intersect them, get them exactly right, and then what I'll do is I'll tab them in place with multiple layers of tabbing. I'll plane it, tab it, get it exactly right, fill it and put it in place, and it's slashing down. It hasn't rained like this for months, or probably nearly a year here in Oz, and we're loving every bit of it. So it's great for us to hear the rain, and anyone here in Australia can totally relate. We have had shocking drought, and I'm listening to this, and it's actually a great feeling to hear some rain. So we've got a good mitered join there. Now that's actually dead centre, and that's actually meeting the foam bulkhead there. And it's also, once that's put in place, got the right angle here. So yeah, a little bit of fiddling, but certainly worthwhile to get that absolutely spot on. But that's a perfect result. I'm very, very happy. Yeah, I just had a buddy drop in, and he hadn't been here for about a year, and I was showing him everything. So I've basically shown him the fuel tanks and the black water tanks and everything, and just pulling bits and pieces out. I just sort of show you the sort of art of chaos. I've got bulkheads, I've got walls, I've got stuff pulled out all over the place. But if you look here, you know, even just showing somebody the fuel tanks was enough to send the place into chaos. But you know, it's as dusty and as hell in here at the moment. I'm going to come in tomorrow, and before I do anything else, you can see my new bulkheads over there. Pretty jazzed about that. I'm absolutely over the moon with the way that's come up, and in fact, it's perfect. I'm going to give the place a damn good vacuum, because look at the dust. I mean, Jesus, that can't be good for you. I look at all these guys building boats, and you know, the stuff that we're taking into our lungs cannot be good for us. But yep, so that is now complete, and that sort of gives me the height of the deck. So there's a lot to be cut off around this area. But yeah, we're going to get in here tomorrow and give it a good clean up. I think we got the dodgy jet down it. Listen to that.
The wind apparently.
Sketchy, yeah. That can't be good. Listen to it. And metal on metal. Part 3 of our European adventure. After leaving Janet's family in England, we flew straight to Germany for 2 or 3 days of just relaxing in the city of Munich, and having never been to Germany before, I was absolutely delighted. The place was absolutely brilliant. So we're here in Munich in the English Garden. It's pretty fantastic, I've got to say. I'm blown away by the running water. It's something we're not used to seeing, is it? Don't see a lot of that at home. You guys having a swim?
They just jumped in and took the tide, like we took the tide out.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you have a swim? I am a happy man. Half a litre.
It's soft. Should have got a litre.
Every other bloke here is drinking a litre, so I'm soft. You do a bit of gardening on this place. It's a beautiful pub, isn't it? Hey Janet, I feel like you're in the old town now. The old steak. Our time in Munich has come to an end. What do you reckon, Darren? Had a couple of beers at the Hofbrauhaus House. I think we're okay now, aren't we? Off my chops in Munich. Loving it. Loving it. It was an absolutely sensational couple of days in Munich, and as the glockenspiel sounds its beautiful chimes in the distance with the other 10,000 people, we wish you Auf Wiedersehen, and I'd like to thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share it, and certainly subscribe if you haven't done already. Next issue, we're going to be doing some laminating on the bulkheads. It's about time, isn't it? And I'll see you next time on Life on the Hulls. Thanks for joining me, guys. Catch ya. Bye.